Hi, this is David Paul back again, and I thought I would like to show you something about a boat that I'm doing up, and I thought I'd take a very quick video here before too much work gets done and you don't see exactly the progression of it. And I have a few ideas which might be of use to people who are doing up boats, and you know, in particular with regard to insulation. Because people have a lot of trouble with this and cold boats and all sorts of stuff like that. So from the start, this boat here, it's called a Halmatic 32, made by Nelson Boats, I believe, and you might find it on the web. It was stripped down with the intention of dismantling it and just salvaging it for its components. So basically, I bought it very cheaply for next to nothing, and but unfortunately it has very little in it. However, what I'm intending to do is to use it on the canals here, on the broad canals, because it is a broad beam boat, and it's 11 feet wide by 32 feet long, without the diving board at the back. And therefore it'll only fit on these canals. So we're intending as a family to live on this and save money on rent before I go home to retire in the Philippines. You'll notice that there's a lot of rubbish on top, and that's just stuff I've taken out the boat, and I cannot throw it away yet because that's material which will be required in construction jobs inside, and quite a lot of it is stuff like Bryanzell, original Bryanzell plywood, which is the top grade plywood, and you don't really want to throw that away until you just have to, you know. And some doors and mahogany, quite a lot of mahogany parts which I can trim down and make new components out of. Some of the flowers which I salvaged from my garden because I'm now moving out of that flat that I live in, and if you saw my video Garden the Annalisa, these are sort of a few select samples of plants which I will deck down one side of the boat so we can have a kind of a garden here while we're living on the canal. And that's a bamboo plant there, two bamboo plants which I grew from seed, and they are called Philostachys pubescens, which is a thing I'm trying to grow to use the bamboo as a material for construction. Okay, to start with, as you enter the boat, I've got what's called an inverter generator, a really handy device for anybody who wants to do jobs away from remote power. You can use small power devices, or you can use you know, high power things, and it's very economical on gasoline. Now as we enter the boat, the interior, I'm standing on a rather large deck which I've built, internal sort of mezzanine type deck, and over here we've got a plywood enclosure which will be all capped over later on, and that's intended to be the shower area. Rather lavish, but I have a wife and two girls, and they seem to like bathroom facilities, so for myself I wouldn't have had such lavish use of space for bathroom facilities. In fact, I had an idea for a pop-up bathroom that wasn't even there. You'd push a button and it would emerge out of the ground when you needed it. Anyway, looking forward, that's the steering position there, or rather the steering position over there. And this will basically be a floating house. It won't travel much, maybe a kilometre every couple of weeks, on a what's called a constant cruising license. And looking back down into the rear of the boat, it's starting to look something now. I put some floor down there, and there are no stairs yet, but I've got at least the floor panelled, and we'll be putting some floorboards over the top of that. That's panelled in weatherproof board plywood. It's not top grade marine, but it's also not too bad. So it will do for this job, and we varnished it, and that's going to be a temporary flooring until we cover it over with something really nice. Now the rear of the boat, there's a plywood panel here at the back which has to be removed, this thing here. I'll do that in a couple of minutes. And there's a fuel tank over here. These tanks are absolutely enormous, and I've cut the top off this, and I'm in the process of disposing of the diesel in there. Then eventually that will contain water containers which will be plumbed into the plumbing system, and it will be our water supply. But we don't need anywhere near the amount of water that you would have on a sea voyage, which is what this thing is built for. So on the starboard side, which would be my youngest daughter's cabin here, and I'm putting up this board here, which I'm in the process of scribing in. It's not straight yet, but by scribing in, what I mean is you match it up to the surface that it's got to match, and then you take a little bit off, and you take a little bit more off until eventually it settles in and it's perfect, and then you put a capping strip over the edge to hold it, to stop it swaying about and falling over, and that's that. Now, insulation. I'll go over to the other side. I'll just show you that tank. This will eventually be a bed, but over the top there's one of these old defunct tanks, and that will simply contain a liner, and it will be filled with water, closed off and forgotten about, unless it creates problems by leaking. But that's the end of that. And the same for this tank, which is already cut off down here, but the top's on there because it stinks, because it's full of diesel. Okay, now about insulating a boat. Anybody interested in insulating a boat, if they do some research on the internet, you may find a man who tells you to use a thing called Kingspan or Celotex, and they call it the poor man's spray insulation. Well, I personally, my experience is that it's not necessarily a poor alternative, and it certainly is cheaper. It's around about a quarter of the price of using the spray insulation, and it's very low skill. You don't have to know how to spray the stuff or anything like that. And I did consider using the spray insulation, but if I got into trouble, I've got I've paid £400 for equipment, and then I find I can't operate it or whatever, and I thought, I don't know if I want to do that. So I came up with this alternative. Now, this guy on the internet tells us that what we should do is cut the board so that it doesn't quite fit, right, and then spray around the edges to locate the boards and keep them in place with urethane foam. And the problem with this idea is that the foam material that you use to spray it with, once you start using a can, you really should use it up in one go, because what happens is the nozzles start to block and so on. It's not, you would think you could use it like shaving foam or something like that, but you cannot really, and you end up wasting a lot of material. So this alternative method here is we use, my wife did all of this. You put your buttons in there, the buttons in here to screw to, but in between you put this, this is Celotex, I think it's Celotex, yeah. You put this Celotex in, but you take on the back here, you cut the edge here around the border, and just take off a small strip of this, maybe 1 inch wide, of the silver foil, which is on the reverse side, and you put urethane glue along here, urethane wood glue. Now what's particular about this wood glue is that it expands and it foams, and it tends to fill in any gaps, and if it doesn't match the two sides, it fills the gaps so that the stuff does stick. It's not a tremendous sticker, but it's only holding foam up, and that's held really solidly there. It's not going to go anywhere for my lifetime, and that's the end of that. So you glue it on with that stuff, and if you have any parts where you haven't done it very well, she's missed a bit there, these gaps here, what you do is you wait until the very end of the job, and then you get that can of foam, and then you run around the entire boat and you spray everything, and you use the foam can up in one go, and then that's it, finished. So there's no wastage. I'll just pan back to the rear of the boat, which shows you quite a wide area of this Celotex against the rear bulkhead there. The good thing about this Celotex is that it has this grid pattern on it, which you can see there, square grid pattern. So when you want to measure things, you can say, oh well, it's 5 wide and so on, and it gives you an immediate visual clue as to where you can cut it. So you don't have to be so precise about your measuring. Right, in the rear we have this floor here, looking back towards the bow there. We've got this floor, and that has this huge void underneath, which will be that area, all that woodwork will be all cleared away there, and that'll be a sort of crawl-in closet cupboard type thing, which will give us an awful lot of storage space, and that's it really. I shall just climb up and go into the kitchen and give you a look at that, and then I can post some more videos of the progress of the boat later on. So we're moving forward, and there's a really steep climb down into the kitchen because I've now raised the floor higher. There's basically just enough headroom for me to stand in it, and I'm 5'10", so that's, if you do this sort of thing, you need to gauge the height to suit the height of the tallest person in the family. Okay, we're in the kitchen area, the galley, and what I've done is I've put this sort of false marble type top here. It's not actually marble, it's a plastic material in here. It's all very much of a mess at the moment because it's still a working area, this boat, and it comes round, and then it comes round to this matching corner here, and then finishes there. And over on the other side, anybody familiar with a Halmatic will know that there should be a table in there and 2 small chairs. So what I've done is I've extended these chairs, and there's a sort of cantilever type unsupported edge there of about 3 inches extra, which makes it a lot more comfortable to sit on. The shelf at the back there is temporary, and that will be gone altogether. Yet again, more Celotex and so on. All of the interior materials been ripped off. This doorway leading into the forward cabin has been moved about 8 inches to the left, because my wife wanted it that way. I wouldn't have done it that way, but she chose that way, and it's not too bad actually. It means that you have the bedroom where you're on one side. Okay, this is the bed where I basically just sleep like a dog here for the moment. Cushions and mattresses and all sorts of stuff on it, and that will be finished off soon. All stripped out of its liner, so it's very bare and bleak looking at the moment, and yet more of the Celotex. The key thing about this Celotex or the Kingspan or any of them is that they have the highest rated insulation value of all the materials, and it's also got this skin of aluminium on it, so if a fire ever broke out, it does delay the burning of the material. And in fact, I've thrown bits of it on the fire just as a test, and it's quite hard to burn. You know, you'd have to sit around and wait to burn to death in this thing. It would take so long to get going. So I'm quite confident that it'll be very safe from the fire point of view. And that's it, looking out at the flowers there, nice little view. And that's it. So later on I will do another tour. I'll just pan up to the ceiling, because I know there are family back in the Philippines and in England who want to see this boat. They know this boat and they want to know how she's working out. You can pick these boats up cheap, not these boats, but just boats generally. You can pick boats up cheap, and if you're prepared to do the work, and it is a lot of work, then you can make what you want, and you can end up with a really terrific boat, and it's all labour, which is different compared to owning a house, because the determining factor there is spending money. Mostly with living on a boat, the determining factor is your own preparedness to do the physical work to do it all. Okay, I'm going to end there, and then I'll post this, and then I'll post some more later.